Good evening, everyone. This is Bremster, and tonight for me, I am bringing you a new one of my puzzles. This is a puzzle that I have created quite recently. Using the German Whispers creation, the German Whispers constraint. Um, this is a puzzle I came across, or a puzzle I made while I was exploring the interactions of these German Whispers lines with each other, and came across some interesting interactions that I put into a puzzle. I am failing with the word today. The words are not doing me well. But let's hope I do better with the puzzle. The putting the puzzle together and figuring out how it all worked together to come into the beginning of a puzzle, I found quite interesting, and that's the path that I know quite well, the end of the puzzle. Like if you've watched any of my solve videos of my own puzzles, you'll know that the closer I get to the end of the puzzle, the less familiar I am with the path, because there are multiple ways of doing it. Often with the break-in, there's sort of only one, two, or three ways that you can do the break-in. You may be able to do it in different orders, which is definitely the case with this puzzle. You might be able to get to those main deductions in a couple of different ways, but when you get to the end, the path diverges in so many different ways, and every time I sit down to do the puzzle, I find different things. So I don't know what I'm going to find or the order I'm going to do it, and I'll probably get a little lost as always. I I got some very positive feedback when I did a scripted solve of a hard puzzle the other about a week ago, but I don't think this puzzle is that hard, so I'm going to try and do this one without a script. So the way before I get into the puzzle, if you like the video, please like it. If you want to see more of mine, I'm going to try and do a couple of videos a week. Please subscribe, and I will have details of how you can find other puzzles of mine below. I also a lot of the videos I do are of other puzzle setters, so I highly recommend you check those out as well, because there are some phenomenal puzzles from other setters that I am given permission to do. Anyway, onto this puzzle. This puzzle is called Scarabs, and it only uses two real constraints. Normal Sudoku rules, which is in all of my puzzles. So every row, every column, and every box must have the digits from 1 to 9 without repetition. The main constraint in this puzzle is the German Whispers line constraint, which is along these green lines, and these actually cross each other, but along a German Whispers line, all neighbouring digits must differ by at least 5. So if you were to have, say, a 3 here, this digit would have to be 3 different from 5. So you could not put a 7 here because that is only 4 different, but you could put an 8 or a 9. The other constraint is Kropki pairs. There are some black dots. These two cells must have a ratio of 1 to 2. And white dots mean that the cells must be consecutive. Not all dots are given in the puzzle. So I have put this together in a way that you literally have these mostly symmetrical shapes. This does turn into a solvable puzzle, which kind of blew my mind when I found that out. So let me try and take you through the solution. So there's a couple of ways of trying to break into this puzzle. I'm going to show you the way that I found when I first started exploring this. So I'm actually going to skip over some very obvious deductions at the beginning, so that you can see what I was intending. So what I started with is this combination at the top. And for a long time, this was all I had, and I was exploring how this interacted. So when you put this together in the grid, of course, no German Whispers line can have a 5 on it. And the reason it can't have a 5 on it is if you subtract 5 from 5, you get 0, because they have to have a difference of at least 5, and you can't put a 0 into a Sudoku grid, and if you add 5, then you get to 10, and you can't put 10 into a cell in a Sudoku grid. And because all 8 of these cells contain a German Whispers line, you can immediately put a 5 into there. Now, there are other 5s I can put into the grid, and I will get to that, but I'm not going to do it yet. The next thing that I found while playing with this interaction was if you look at the way these connect, then with a German Whispers line, if you put a 4 or a 6 onto a German Whispers line, it can only have one number next to it. So if you put a 4 into a German Whispers line, or a Whispers line, then it can only have a 9 next to it. And that's because if you go down from 4, you get to -1. If you go up from 4, the only digit you can get to is a 9. Similarly, with a 6, the only digit that can be next to a 6 is a 1. So if you were to put a 4 or a 6 here, there are two numbers adjacent to it within the same box. So you cannot put a 4 or a 6 here. Same with this cell, two numbers adjacent to it on the same line. This cell has two numbers adjacent to it on the same line that see each other, and that's the important thing. Because they see each other, they can't be the same digit. So you cannot put 4 or 6 into any of those cells. Similarly with this cell cannot have a 4 or a 6 in it because adjacent to it are those two. So you are limited to having 4 and 6 into the corners, because this cell would only have one cell adjacent to it. This would only have one adjacent to it. This would have two, but they don't see each other. And this would have two, but they don't see each other. And then you look at this and you start asking yourself, how does that impact the 1s and 9s? Because the way you get this is, I'll do the colouring first because it becomes more clear, but you can figure it out without the colouring, but I'll do it the easy way. So you get this pattern. This is exactly the same. So you can put a 5 in here, and then you can identify that 4 and 6 must go into these cells. In this column, there is only one cell that isn't a German Whispers line, and you have the same in column 3, so you can put a 5 in there. That narrows 5 down to in column 9 to those 3 cells, but it can't be in row 1. That narrows 5 down in column 1 to those 3 cells, but it can't be in row 9. Now we can get a slight other reduction. In box 8, 5 can go in those cells, but because this Kropki dot is a 1-to-2 ratio, you can't put a 5 on a black Kropki dot because its 1-to-2 ratio would either be 2.5 or 10. It doesn't work. So you can put 5 into one of those two cells, which means when you look at row 5 and you can't put 5 in there, it has to go into box 5, you can actually eliminate there and you're down to 2 cells. In box 2, you are down to 3 cells, and I'm actually going to pencil mark them because this will become important later. So we've now got this situation where you've got the 4s and 6s in the corners. Now, another thing that you normally do with a German Whispers line is you do high-low highlighting, because another important thing that comes with German Whispers lines, if you have not seen them before, is because they must always differ by 5, if you have a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4 on a German Whispers line, the next digit, because it'll be 5 different, has to be a 6, 7, 8, or 9. And then the next digit, because it has to be at least 5 different, has to be below 5. And they keep toggling from below 5, above 5, below 5, above 5. So what we often find ourselves doing is doing what's called high-low highlighting, where you will highlight adjacent digits. And let's say I make this, yellow. And then the next cell I will call blue. And we'll say one of these is going to be high, one of these is going to be low. We don't know which, but one of them will be high, one of them will be low. The next digit will be back to yellow, the next digit will be blue, the next digit will be yellow. And we've got the high-low highlighting of this line without knowing which is which. We can then look at this German Whispers line. Now, there are only 4 digits on either side of 5, and there are already 3 yellows in this box, but we need to put 2 more. These 2 are the same because they are separated by 2 on the line. So we cannot make these yellow. They must be blue, because if they were yellow, we would have 5 digits above 5 or 5 digits either above or below 5, and we can't do that. So this digit now becomes yellow. These digits become yellow. These digits become blue. And I'm going to stop explaining the parity and everything. I'm just going to call the highlighting at this point. These 2 cells are now, as you can see, these are 2 apart from each other on a German whispers line, but they can't. There's already 3 blue in the column, so they must be yellow, which makes the other ones on that blue. And if we look here, this must be on a German whispers line, but we've already got 4 yellow in the column, so that becomes blue, they become blue, and they become yellow. And we're able to colour all of those without knowing exactly what they are. On this other side, and I'm going to use 2 different colours, let's use orange. I can use exactly the same colouring. So I can actually replicate this but flip the puzzle almost 180 degrees to get it. So these we will call orange. These we will call, I'm actually going to use purple. So these will be orange. They don't look very good. How does green look on? Yeah, green's not too bad. The lines are a thing. So these will be orange. These will be green. Replicating this, these will be orange and these will be green. And you can see that this is the same pattern. And again, we've got to have 2. They can't be green, so they will be orange. These 3 will be green. And now we've got 4 orange, so this has to be green. These 2 have to be green, and this has to be orange. Now, we can look at these rows and columns, and we can determine that, like, we've got 2, 2, 2, 2, so this could be anything, this could be anything. We look here, and we're trying to find a way of determining which these are. And it seems at first that it's kind of futile, and we can't do it. But there's actually a very important Kropki dot, which is that one. What we know is this is a digit that is either higher than 5 or lower than 5, and the next digit is going to be in the same bracket because it can't hit a 5 because there's a 5 here. So whether this is 1, 2, 3, or 4, this can't jump to higher the other color. This has to be the same color. So even if this was a 4, there's no way I can get this to a 6, 7, 8, or 9 because the only way I can take it is down to a 3. So whichever way it is, and if it's a 1, 2, or a 3, this is still going to be in the same bracket. And if I use a high digit, it'll be the same. So this is going to be green. And then all of a sudden, in this column, I have, in this row, I have 3 green. Which means if blue was green, I would have 5 of the same high-low parity, and it doesn't work. So what I know now is yellow is green, and I can select all of the green cells and make them yellow, and I can select all of the orange cells and make them blue. And that gives me the high-low coloring of all of the German whispers lines in accordance with each other. Now we can go back and look at the 4s and 6s. We could do this before we did the parity colouring, or before we did the whole grid parity colouring, having just done these, but once you start parity colouring, I like trying to finish as much as, at least finishing the German whispers lines. So if we look at this again, what we end up with is we've got a situation where one of these must be 4 or 6 because one of these will be either the high or the low, and these will contain the other. So you can't, for example, have this as a 4-6 pair and you can't have this as a 4-6 pair because these share the same high-low parity. So there will either be a 4 or a 6 up here and a 4 and a 6 down here, which means one of these 2 cells must be either 4 or 6. And what we know about a 4 or a 6 is it must have a 1 or a 9 next to it at both sides. So whichever one of these is a 4 or a 6, that cell must be a 1 or a 9. Because if this cell was not a 1 or a 9, we could not put a 4 or a 6 in either of those cells and we would break the pattern. So this must contain a 1 or a 9. The other one must exist in one of those 2 cells. And because it must exist in one of those 2 cells, one of these must contain the other 1 or 9. So 1 or 9 will form a pair in this row. And the same is true down here. This must be only 1 or 9, and the other 1 or 9 must exist in here. So it'll knock 1 or 9 out of all of those. Now we can look at this cell and we can say it can't be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3, it can't be 4, can't be 5, can't be 6, it can be 7 or an 8, and it can't be 9. So this is narrowed down to just 4 options, and this cell is the same, 2, 3, 7, 8. This is on a black Kropki dot, so you can't put 7 on a black Kropki dot because its ratio would be 3.5 or 14, which doesn't work. If this is a 2, this would be a 1 or a 4. If this is a 3, this would be a 6, and if this is an 8, this would be a 4. So the only option we've got in this cell here is 1, 4, or 6. 2 of which are low, 1 of which is high. But we can ask ourselves, what happens if this cell is a 1? If this is a 1, this becomes a 2, which is all good, but this becomes a 9. But these have the same high-low parity. So if this is a 2 and this is a 9, these both can't be blue. So 1, 2, 9 does not work. This cannot be a 1. This becomes a 4, 6. The next question we ask ourselves, and this is why this puzzle is actually quite tricky, you need to figure out where you need to look next, particularly for the break-in, which we're almost through now, is in row 2. We've got 4 of the 4 yellow digits. Now, these will either be high or low. We do not know which, but we know that the 1 or the 9 is already taken. So if these are low, we can't use the 1 over here, and if these are high, we can't use the 9 over here. What we haven't placed yet is the 4 or the 6. Could we place the 4 or the 6 in that cell? If we did, if we placed the 4, let's just use low for now as the working hypothesis, but the logic would be the same, exactly the same if it was high. If this was the 1, could we place the 4 here? Well, if we did, we would have to place both 9s there, or 9s in both of those cells, which is blatantly not possible. So that's not the 4. If this was the 4, we would have to place 2 9s there. That's not going to work. So the only place we can place the 4 is there. And the logic is exactly the same. If we use high digits, that becomes the 6. Now, before I look at this column, if that's 4 or 6, and we can't put 5 in that cell, that must go down to 3 or up to 7. We've now used, if it's low, we've now used the 1, the 3, and the 4, so that must be the 2. And for high, we've used the 6, 7, and 9, so that'd have to be 8. So depending on whether this is low or high, we know this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we can look at this 4, 6 pair. Because of this 4, 6 pair, we know that these are different, but this one is yellow. So this one can't also be yellow, because if these were the same, they would have to both be the same high-low parity. And that is blatantly not true, because if they were the same, they both have to either be above 5 or below 5. So this cell becomes blue. And once that cell becomes blue, everything is blown open. Because if this is a 6, this is a 3. One number above 5, one number below 5, and that does not work. So this is not a 6, not a 6, and it must be 4. That means this is not a 3. Now, these both have to be the same high-low. So if that's an 8, that doesn't work. That becomes a 2. This 4 makes this a 6, and we now know that this was 6, 7, 8, and 9. We now know there is no 9 in there, and we've got the high-low parity of the whole grid. We know that yellow is high, and we know that yellow is high, and we know that blue is low. And from here, we can actually work towards solving the rest of the grid. This is the bit of the puzzle that I understood pretty well. From this point on, I'm kind of solving a little bit blind. So what we need to do now is use the constraints we've got to try and narrow things down. So for example, we know these are high and they're not 6, 7, so these need to be an 8, 9. These are high without being 8, so these are 6, 7, and 9. What else can I figure out? This is a 3, 4 pair because we've got 1 and 2 in the box. That means these are 1 and 2. I'm sure there is more I can figure out. I will get there. So these are 2, 3, and 4 because there's already a 1 in the row. But if this was a 4, both of those would have to be a 9. If this was a 4, both of those would have to be a 9. So I can take 4 out of those. This is either 2 or 3. If this is a 2, this is 1 or 4, but it can't be 1, so this becomes 4. If this is a 3, this is a 6. So this is a 4 or a 6. I can't colour it because I don't know which way it goes, but I've got this 2, 3 pair. Now, if I look in these cells, which are 6, 7, 8, or 9, in fact, these are also high. These are 6, 7, 8, or 9, but I can't put 6 in either of them because if you remember, 6 must go adjacent to 1 on both sides, and I can't put a 1 in that cell, and I can't put a 1 in that cell to be adjacent to that. So I can take 6 out of both of those. That is 7, 8, or 9, and that is 7, 8, or 9 for the same reasons. They're adjacent to those cells. These are 7, 8, or 9 because the 6 is up there. These are 6, 7, 8. There's no 7 down here. I'll actually take the 6s and the 9s out. These are 6, 7, 8, and I'm pencil marking a lot here, partly because I'm not 100% sure what I should be doing. There are 4 yellow and a 5 at the top, so both of these become blue. Of course, what I should be doing is doing color highlighting. There are 4 yellow here, but I'm not sure how that helps me. It's probably some color highlighting I am missing. Here we go. There are 4 blue in that row and there are 4 yellow in that box. So that cell sees 4 blue and 4 yellow. So that can't be either yellow or blue, and it must be a 5. So that is a 5, that is not a 5. And now we've got 5s locked into those cells. There are 4 yellow, so this cell becomes blue. I've now got 4 blue, this cell becomes yellow. And we've still got a yellow or blue to go in there. So these are 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I'm not sure of anything on those yet, I don't think. 6 must go in one of those two because there are 4. Yep, this must be high. So one of these is blue. One of these is blue. Here we go. In this column, so if we look at this cell, this has to be 6, 7, 8, or 9. But if that was 6, both of those would have to be 1. So this can't be 6. I now have 7, 8, 9 triple in this column. So that becomes the 6, which makes that a 1, which means that is not the 1. These are now a 2, 3, 4, without that one being a 4. There must be a 1 in one of those two. Actually, pencil marking across boxes like that I'm not yet quite ready to do, but there must be a 1 in one of those two. There's got to be a 3 in there. In fact, this is a 3, 7 pair, which means this is a 1, 2 pair because I've now got 3 and 4 locked out of those two cells. Does that put any restriction on those? No, one of these must be a 6, so one of these must be a 2. Actually, I've got the same up here. One of these must be a 4, so one of these must be a 9. So I cannot put 9 anywhere in this row other than those two cells. So for example, that means 9 must go in here, which means 9 must go down here somewhere. This is 6, 8 and 9. I can't put 9 there. I can't remember what the next big deduction was. So this is a 2, 3, 4. Because of that 1. Nine, 4, 9 would allow 2, 3, 4, 9, 4, 9. That's 9, that's 7, 8. So this is 6, 7 or 8 because it must be adjacent to 7 or 8 and it can't be 5. Well, it couldn't be anyway, and it can't be the 9 because the 9 has to go into one of those. These are all low now because I've got 4 high, so that must be 3, that must be 7. That 7 is high. So this is 1, 2, and 4. If I've got 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, this also has to be 1, 2, 4. I can take 3 out of there. This becomes 1, 2, 4. This is 2, 3, 4. I'm missing something with the high-low colouring, I'm sure. Or is it something with these? So these 1, 2, 3, or 4. Can't put 4 in there because 4 must exist in one of those. So this is 1, 2, or 3. If that's 6, that's 1, that's all fine. What is it I've forgotten? That can't be 6. So that's 7, 8, or 9. Because if it was 6, I'd have to put 1 on either side, and I just blatantly can't do that. If that's 6, that's 7, that's 8. If that's 7, that's 2. This becomes 3, 4. That's 6, that's... I don't think this is the way I did it last time, but if this is 6, that's 7. That's 8. This is 7, 9. If that's 7, that has to be 2. But there's a 7, 9 here. But this would be 3, 4. And I can't put 3 or 4 next to a 7. So that can't be a 6. I'm sure there was a more elegant way of doing that, but I can't remember what it was. 6 now has to go in one of those two. There's no 6 there now. That is a 6. I can take 6 out of there. That's an 8, 9 pair. So I've got 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. This is also 7, 8, 9. I have 7, 8, 9 as a triple. These are all high. I've got 7, 8, 9 as a triple there. So that is a 6. That is not a 6. It does not put a constriction on that. This 7, of course, has been providing a whole bunch of stuff. So this can't be a 4 because it sees an 8. This can't be a 4 or a 3 because it sees a 7. This can't be a 3 because it sees a 7. That's a 1, 2 pair looking at a 4. This is what I should have found earlier. 1, 2 pair looking at a 4. But 8 can be 1, 2, or 3. So I've got 1, 2, 4. These have got to be 3, 5, and 6. That's not 6. And these are now known as well. 1, 2, 3, and 6. So that's a 3, 6 pair. It's just one thing I'm missing, I'm sure. Was it this Kropki dot? So if that's a 4, that's a 2, that's a 3, which takes 7 out of both of those. That's a 1, that's a 3, that's a 2. No, that's not. That's blue. It's 1, 3, 4. Sorry, everyone. This can't be a 7 because it has to be next to a 3 or a 4. So I can take 7 out of there. This gives me an 8, 9 pair. This becomes a 6. This becomes the 7. The 6 must be next to the 1. The 1 must be next to the 2. That takes 1 out of both of those. That makes that a 4. Because I can't put 4 in there anymore, the only place for 4 in box 2 is there. 1, 2, this becomes, take 6 out of there. This becomes a 3, 5 pair. There's a 3, 5 pair now in column 4. So that becomes a 2. That becomes a 3. That is not a 3, but that 2 makes that a 1, which makes that 2. The 2 makes that a 4, so that becomes blue. The 3 is the only digit not left. I get a 2, I get a 1. The 3 makes that a 5 and that a 3, so that becomes blue. That 3 makes that a 5. There is no 5 in that. That 3 makes that a 6 and that a 3. So we get a blue there and a yellow there. There's no 8 there. This 7, 9 actually makes that an 8 and takes 8 out of there. And now I'm starting to feel like I've got some progress happening. So this 3 takes 7 out of both of those because 3 is not 5 away from 7. This is now a known triple, which is 5, 6, and 7. Pardon me, that can't be 6 or 7, so that becomes the 5. I can take 5 out of those. I could never put 5 into that one anyway. That becomes yellow. That puts 5 there, finishing off the 5s. This becomes blue as the only... I've got 4 yellow and I've got the 5, and this becomes yellow. This is a 6-7 because I've got the 8-9 pair. This becomes a 1-4. Now I'm wondering if this is going to finish it off. The 7-8 pair is looking down at the 6, which makes that a 7, which makes that a 6. Maybe I'm being hopeful here. That 4 is looking down at that 3. That's a 4. 4 must be next to 9, so that becomes an 8. That 9 makes that an 8 and makes that a 9. In this column, I'm just missing a 1, which makes that a 2, and that a 1. The 2 makes that a 3, which makes that a 2. Either of those are possible. Either of those are possible. Something will resolve that. So this is a 7, 8, or 9. This is not 2. That's a 1-4 pair. That 6 is looking up, making that a 3 and making that a 6. So let's colour them. That's blue, that's yellow. That's not a 6 anymore, which it hasn't been for ages. I just hadn't noticed. So 7, 8, 7, 8, 9. We do know one of those is 9, but I'm not sure which. It'll all depend on which one of those is 4. There's got to be something looking at this. That's not a 3 anymore. It's a 2-4 pair, which means one of them needs to be 4. And if one of them has to be a 4 on a German Whispers line, that must be the 9. And we know that if that can't be the 9, that can't be a 4. So that has to be the 4. This is a 2-3 pair, and I can take the 2 out of there. This now becomes the 2. Okay, one of these is going to have to be a 7. So if I make this a 3, it will break whichever 7 it is. So that becomes a 2, that becomes a 3. I now can make either of those 7, but I can't make that a 7. That must be an 8, because if I made it a 7, it'd only be 4 away from the 3. That becomes the 7, that becomes the 8, and that becomes the 7. That makes that a 9 and that a 7. That 9 makes that an 8 and that a 9. Surely I'm only cleaning up now. 7, 8, that makes that a 9, which makes that an 8, which makes that a 7, which is between two 2s, so that's okay. That's a 9. That's an 8. The 8 is only 4 away from 4, so it makes that a 1, makes that a 4, makes that a 1, makes that a 4, and that looks good to the computer. So that's how Scarabs works. I was very surprised to find that those German Whispers lines in that that I was able to make a puzzle using that. So when I found this original constraint, which originally was, they only just looked like this, so they didn't come down this full length, and I found this, and I found the interplay with pushing 4s and 6s into the corners and forcing the 1-9s into the middle, and then restricting the cell that wasn't the 5 and being able to use that for Kropki dot constraints. And then I was able to use the alternating scarabs to use it to be able to force the colouring and then create the pair and just force the whole thing to resolve. That was just, I was very happy to find, and as I said, I did set the puzzle, but I feel that the constraints kind of let me discover it rather than. I think Simon from Cracking the Cryptic has said in the past that sometimes a puzzle feels like a when you're solving it, it feels more like a discovery than a creation, and this definitely felt like this while I was putting it together. Felt like I was discovering this in the grid, not creating the puzzle and lodging it out. I hope you enjoyed Scarabs. I know, and I hope you tried the puzzle first. It's been rated at sort of about a 2.5 difficulty. So yeah, good luck with future solves, and I hope you try more of my puzzles if you like them. I will provide a link to my puzzles on Logic Masters Germany. And I hope you come back to see more of my puzzles. Thank you very much. Enjoy the channel, and please try out some of the other phenomenal setters who have let me do their puzzles on my channel. Thank you very much.